Welcome back to my channel, Moving to Madison, Wisconsin. I'm your host, Mindi Kessenich, and today we're going to discuss 4 unique facts about homes in Wisconsin. Number 1, we love wood. Most of the construction here in Madison, Wisconsin is what we call stick-built, meaning we use 2x4s. We use wood to do all of the framing for the house, the trusses, all of it. And that is just a little bit unique because I know in some of the warmer climates, you're going to find things like cinder block or concrete framing for the house. We use wood. We use wood for all kinds of things. Sometimes you're going to find wood siding. I've even seen wood foundation, which is like a little bit of a red flag, but we have seen it done. Bottom line, lots of wood everywhere. Something to be aware of, because if you do find a house that has wood siding, for example, just know that there's going to be a little bit of extra maintenance on that type of property versus one that has aluminum siding or vinyl, which is most common, brick, things like that. Number 1, we're stick built. Number 2, our harsh weather systems and seasons provides for some very interesting issues in South Central Wisconsin. Probably the easiest way to explain this is kind of from an inspection standpoint. If you purchase a home in Wisconsin and you end up getting an inspection, some of the major defects that an inspector is going to be looking for is number 1, basement issues. We oftentimes see water or evidence of water at some point in basements. And I will say, if you do an incredible job, or whoever's owned the house prior to you has done an incredible job keeping up the landscaping, keeping the gutters on the house cleaned out and maintained, you are likely going to have a dry, must-smelling free situation in the basement. However, if there is poor landscaping, if the landscaping, sort of ends up caving in towards the house versus being up at an angle, which your inspector and your real estate agent can tell you all about, you're likely going to see some more water in the basement. Also, our foundation is more times than not made out of poured concrete and concrete cracks. So sometimes there will be water intrusion from cracks in the basement. A lot of houses are going to have what are called a sump pump. Those are excellent, assuming they work, which is something that you should also get checked very regularly. Just a little side note, because that is going to also help you pump the water out of the water tables to keep your basement nice and dry. But just one of the things that we see in the spring and the fall, we see very heavy rainfalls at times, and we can see some flash flooding, and ultimately there's a lot of basements that have or will see water, and that is a huge fear of everybody's. And so it's just one of those things to look out for. Again, if you do a really great job landscaping, it can absolutely protect your property from any of that water intrusion, but just something to look out for. Another thing to look out for are coils on a roof. So sometimes when you go to a house, especially if there's a house that's got different peaks and valleys that are coming together in the roofing system, sometimes you'll notice some weird wires or coils on the roof, on the shingles. And a lot of times that is evidence that there was some sort of ice damming. Not a huge issue as long as it's been maintained and dried out appropriately, but it's just one of those things that we get crazy winds and we all of a sudden get freezing, and these temps of water can, if you get a crazy wind and then some rain, it gets under one of your asphalt shingles and now it's frozen, and it can cause this ice dam, which then that's when a lot of times you see some staining on a ceiling. It's not necessarily there's a giant issue with the roof necessarily, but what it can mean is there is potentially an ice dam. If you take care of it appropriately, it can really resolve itself and you can move on. But something just to be aware of, again, if you're walking through a house, you see some staining or you see some coils on the roof, that is just one of the downsides of our crazy weather systems. Also, because of those heavy winds that we can get through pretty much any of the seasons, is be aware of the trees that are surrounding your property. I recently had a client who had a giant tree fall in their backyard. Thankfully, there was no damage done to their house or any of the surrounding houses. However, they did have to pay for this giant tree to be cut up, removed, and then put down the new soil and seed and all of that stuff. And it's a huge ticket item to have that tree removed and all of that stuff. And so they tried to file an insurance claim, and their insurance agent told them that they did not have tree insurance, which I honestly have never recommended to a buyer in the past, which now is something that I'm going to be more aware of as well. If you have trees around your property that look like they could fall and be very costly to remove or, take care of at a later date, tree insurance is something that you may want to just run by your insurance agent when you are getting quotes. Bugs, just like we do, come wintertime, late fall, winter, the bugs like to hibernate. And guess where they want to hibernate? Like in the walls and crevices of your nice, warm, heated home. And so having a pest person is super important. It can help with spiders, it can help with flies, bees, ants, all of those things, Japanese beetles, all of these things. Like I said, in the wintertime, in the late fall, they're going to try to find a warm place to nest themselves for the summer, and a lot of times it will be inside your walls. Something to consider is getting friendly with a local bug guy. Another thing just to keep in mind is the age of your windows if you're purchasing a home here, because a well-maintained window should really last the lifetime of a home. However, a lot of times people don't care for the windows the way that they should, and once they become really drafty, it can really add an expense to your heat bill, your cooling bill. And so just something to take into consideration if you do purchase a home that has some older windows is they may be drafty, and again, with the wind that we see in a lot of the seasons, it can just be something that adds to your monthly expense, and anymore, replacing windows is extremely expensive. The last thing I'll say about the harsh weather that we have is, again, with the wood. We love our summers here, and so most houses are either going to have a really nice patio, a really nice deck, like a nice backyard area. A lot of people are really excited when they find a house that has some Trex or any sort of maintenance-free decking, because our harsh winters, like all the snow and the salt and whatever that sits on your deck, your wood deck, all year round, or all winter I should say, it can really cause some wear and tear on your deck. And unfortunately, every couple years you're looking at painting, scraping, conditioning things like a wooden fence and a wooden deck, and any of those things that are in your exterior, the trim around your garage door, all of those things. So just another thing to consider is any of those wood accents that you see are going to just need to be maintained. Number 3, our home mechanicals are plentiful. The heating systems alone in a home in Wisconsin is a long laundry list of options. The most common and probably most preferred is forced air, which is your furnace. If you have a traditional furnace in your home here, you're going to have all of the ductwork throughout the home. You're going to have heating vents usually depending on the age of the house, in all of the rooms of the house, which is great because even if on the sheer chance that it didn't have central air conditioning, if you have a forced air furnace and you have the vents throughout the house, it's not that costly to add AC. AC, I'm telling you, is a deal breaker for a lot of people in Wisconsin. We don't have a lot of months of very hot weather, but when we do, it's hot, it's muggy, and you need and want AC to remove that moisture from the house and cool it down, all those things. And so if you have a forced air traditional furnace, you're going to have the ductwork, and then if there isn't central air conditioning, you can easily, for a very fair, if you want to use that term, price, you can add the AC, where if you have one of the other heating systems like electric heat or sometimes boiler heat, which is radiant heat, you're probably not going to have that ductwork. And to add to the ductwork, it means ripping into ceilings and drywall, and it can be very, very costly if possible at all. So we have forced air, we have radiant heat, we have electric heat, there are heat pumps, there are different heat zones. In some of the newer, larger homes, you can have a furnace that has different zones. So like maybe there's a zone for upstairs versus downstairs so that you can control those differently and a little bit more efficiently. There's also sometimes in-floor radiant heat, which is usually a little bit of an upgrade. And sometimes you're gonna see that there's multiple heating units because maybe it's an older home that had an addition, and in the addition they added forced air, but in the older house they have electric or boiler heat. The mechanicals, just from a heating perspective, can be anyways a little much to comprehend and wrap your head around. If you aren't able to get central air, some people still use the good old-fashioned window ACs. Otherwise, there are mini split units that you can add. They're a little bit unsightly, but they're very efficient, and they work really well in the event that you don't have ductwork. That you're going to see a lot of times, like in cabins up north or second home type situations, although I have definitely seen them, especially in additions of homes where they don't want to add all the ductwork, and so they put in one of these mini split units, and it can heat and it can cool. Another good option. Water softeners, I know that those are not prevalent everywhere. They are very, very common here. We have very hard water in Wisconsin, and so most homes have a water softener, and that's one of those things that you always have to watch for. Is it included or is it rented? A lot of people anymore purchase them like they're included in new construction homes now, but in older homes, sometimes people are renting them. So you have to make sure that you know whether you're gonna jump into a lease or if you can buy it outright, whatever. Bottom line, most homeowners anymore have water softeners in their house. One other thing that is kind of looked at as almost like a luxury is April air, and that is just an add-on to your furnace. And what it does is it actually in the winter months puts that moisture back in. So in the summertime, you're gonna have a dehumidifier running in your basement like all the time. You walk into a basement in the summer and there's a dehumidifier, do not freak out, because most, if not all, basements should have a dehumidifier running in the basement during the summer months specifically. Sometimes all year round is necessary, which is totally fine and acceptable. In the winter though, we need to put that moisture back in because that air gets so dry. So we have April air. Well, if you're lucky enough, you'll have April air in the winter months, and then in the summer months, you'll have a dehumidifier to pull moisture back out of your house. Like I said, one thing to just know is there's lots of mechanicals to know and understand and service and operate and all the things. Number 4, the last thing I'm going to talk about today that's fairly unique, I think, to our area is our basements. We love our basements. There are lots of different types of basements in Wisconsin. There are crawl spaces, which aren't as common. There are partial basements, there are full basements, there are walkout basements, there are basements that have full exposure, but not what's called a walkout. I mean, there's a huge range of basements. Rarely will you find a house on a slab here. It does happen, we do have them, but most of the time there is at least a partial, if not a full basement in our houses. I'm going to show you a couple videos and photos of some of the basements that I have come across over the years. There are basements that are full dirt, like a dirt floor, and they are so musty and full of cobwebs that buyers typically don't even completely enter them. And then there are basements that are so beautifully done that I would actually live in them. I'm not a huge basement dweller. For me, I did not want a walkout basement when we built our house because I wanted to walk from my living room to my backyard. But I will tell you that I am in the minority for that. If you are purchasing a lot, for example, to build a new construction home, the lots that offer full walkout ability are going to be priced higher than the houses that are just going to give some partial exposure. And this is because so many people love to finish their basement and spend, or at least they think they're going to spend, a ton of time entertaining down there. Now, I enjoy entertaining in my kitchen, but there are lots and lots of people that do amazing things in their finished basement for entertainment, for kids to have separate living quarters. I have seen gardens down in the basements with, obviously some artificial light a lot of times. People put incredible bars. There's going to be a picture of an amazing Wisconsin bar. Here is a picture of a very typical Wisconsin basement bar. This is super common for people to do, and the older and more vintage it can feel, like, you know, putting the old beer neon signs up and, you know, a muskie on the wall. The older, the better. There are plenty of people that put in what's called an egress window so that they can put in a legal bedroom down there if it doesn't automatically have some partially exposed windows. A lot of people use their basement for office spaces or a den. Again, they put wet bars down there, they put entertainment down there. I've had people build new construction homes where they sink the basement so that they can put in like a golf simulator. Obviously, no matter what you choose to do with your basement, it's going to provide some really amazing storage space. But typically, no matter where you buy, no matter the age of the house, there will be some sort of basement. And the people in Wisconsin they just love their basements. Depending on where you're looking, what your price point is, all of that good stuff, you could walk into some really beautiful basements, which I think is unique just because in some areas of the country, you can't find a house with a basement. Head to Wisconsin, give me a call. I'll schedule some showings with some amazing basements and show you what all of your options are on whether you want to be a basement dweller or you want to just walk out into your backyard. Either way, there are some great options, and the options for your basement are endless. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to hearing from you. As always, thank you so much for joining. See you next time.